and welcome to this talk, which is within the program of Spanish and Portuguese, the Masters and the Certificate in Translation and Interpreting, and is sponsored and funded by the Department of Spanish and Portuguese. My name is Laura Ramirez, for those who don't know me, and I'm an assistant teaching professor here and the coordinator of the translation program. Today we will have roughly about 60 minutes, which means that after Dr. Vargas has finished the presentation, which will be about 40 minutes, there will be plenty of time for questions or comments, and we're using Zoom, so please use the chat, or you can open your camera or your mic to ask a question. And now it gives me a great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, who is a great professional and a friend. I'm lucky to say that she's a good friend, Dr. Chelo Vargas. She holds a PhD in translation and interpreting and is recipient of a doctorate extraordinary award, and is a professor and founding member of the Inter-University Institute of Applied Modern Languages, ULMA, which she has directed since 2021. She has taught undergraduate and postgraduate courses on subjects such as terminology, legal translation, economic and financial translation, translation technologies, corpus linguistics, and general translation in various institutions, including the University of Alicante, the International University Menéndez Pelayo, and the Ricardo Palma University in Lima, Peru. And she's an honorary professor and member of the College of Translation and of Translators of Peru. And her research focuses on terminology applied to translation, specialized languages, English, Spanish, corpus linguistics, and translation technologies. She has extensive research experience and has been in many international conferences. And I would like to highlight, she's the principal investigator of the Digitender project, focused on the digitization of multilingual terminological resources and the analysis of lexicon and discourse from a gender perspective. She has also served as an editor and author of various international publications and is part of the editorial boards of journals such as Ibérica and Sendebar. She also chairs the Technical Standardization Committee 191 for terminology, and has delivered more than 50 international seminars at universities and organizations such as the European Union and Translators Associations. Very impressive. It's really a pleasure and an honor to have you with us today, Dr. Vargas Sierra. She will be presenting today a talk titled Terminology, Corpus and Translation Training in the AI Area. Welcome, Dr. Vargas Sierra, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Rutgers University for this kind invitation. It is a great pleasure and also an honor for me to be here today with all of you. I would also like to thank in a very special way my dear colleague, my dear friend, Laura Ramirez. Thank you, Laura, for your kind invitation, for your support, and for making this experience possible. Today, I will speak about terminology, about corpora, and all these connected to translation training and in the AI era. This is a topic that is becoming more and more important for translators, researchers, and also educators like myself. As you know, artificial intelligence is changing many aspects of our lives. It is also changing how we work with languages and how we teach translation in our universities, or at least we are thinking about that. In this talk, I will share some ideas and practical examples of how we can adapt to this new context, how we can use corpora and technology to improve the way we teach terminology and translation, and how we can prepare future translators for the challenges of the digital world. Let's take a look at how this presentation is organized. I grouped these key ideas into 4 interconnected thematic blocks, each reflecting a core aspect of translation training in this age of artificial intelligence. First, we have foundations. We begin by clarifying what we mean by AI and large language models, and how these tools are reshaping translation workflows. We'll also explore the role of corpus linguistics here, especially in specialized translation training, and how Corpora and AI tools are increasingly converging in practice. Concerning practical workflows and terminology management, we shift from theory to practice here. This section looks at terminology work, what AI can do, where it helps, and where it falls short. We'll also treat terminology as a digital discipline, one that teaches students to manage data, extract terms, create prompts, and work with real tools in real scenarios. I'll be showing concrete examples of how to extract and structure bilingual glossaries using AI. Then about the third point is about ethics and human oversight. AI is powerful, we know that, but it raises important questions. This section is dedicated to ethical considerations, bias, transparency, data privacy, and the role of human oversight, which is essential. We'll discuss why ethical translation training must go hand in hand with technological fluency. And then the closing, training the next generation. Finally, we'll consider what skills tomorrow's translators need. This includes not only linguistic expertise, but also digital literacy, adaptability, and ethical awareness. We'll discuss strategies for integrating these skills into translator education, preparing students for an AI-driven but human-centered future. Let's start with this first part. As you know, artificial intelligence refers to machine or computer systems that can perform tasks which normally require human intelligence, like reasoning, learning, making decisions, or understanding language. There are two main types here, which I think is important to know. Narrow AI, which is what we use today, it focuses on specific tasks like machine translation or speech recognition. And then you have general AI, which is still theoretical. This kind of AI would be able to do anything a human can do intellectually. Okay, so this is what we say is still theoretical. In the field of translation, AI is already part of our daily tools, even if we don't always notice it. We use machine translation tools like DeepL or Google Translate. We use also quality assurance tools like Grammarly or Traduce Language QA. And speech-to-text tools, which are very useful for interpreters. However, it's important to remember that AI does not understand language like we do. It simply predicts patterns based on the data it has been trained on. So the quality of its output depends a lot on the quality and diversity of the training data. This is something we will come back to several times in today's talk. Now let's talk about large language models, or LLMs, which are one of the most powerful tools in current AI. LLMs are advanced systems that are trained on huge amounts of text. They don't translate word by word. Instead, they predict what comes next in a sentence based on patterns they've seen in the data. Okay, for example, tools like GPT-4, Claude, or Gemini are all LLMs. They can write drafts, suggest terminology, simplify text, and even analyze corpora. Now, let me share some important points to keep in mind about how these models actually work. First, LLMs don't think or reason like we do. They just repeat patterns they've learned. They can sound very natural, but that doesn't mean they understand the message. Second, they are not machines of facts. They are based on probabilities. So they can say something that sounds okay, sounds correct, but is actually wrong or even invented. We call this hallucination. Also, when they work with several languages, they may still use English structures or expressions, even if we are translating into Spanish or any other language. That's something to watch out for. And for this reason, it's important that translators not only use the tools, but understand how the tools make decisions. Why does the model choose one term instead of another? Remember, they don't work with real meanings, they work with the statistics. But if we train them with good specialized text, like medical or legal content, depending on the text we work in our translation life, their result improve a lot or can improve a lot. Finally, these tools are becoming more and more common in localization, for example, in websites, mobile apps, or video games. So we need to be ready to work with them and also to question them. Here, you have an image on the right hand side of the screen. You can see LLMs in red. And then I open ChatGPT, and you can see that there are several LLMs here you can use. For example, GPT-4, GPT 4.5, O1, O3 mini, etc. These are models, and you can generate these models too if you pay for this license, for example, in ChatGPT. Now let's take a moment to talk about ChatGPT. It's one of the most well-known tools based on AI, right? ChatGPT is part of a family of models called Generative Pre-trained Transformers, or GPT. In simple terms, it's a language model designed to produce human-like text in response to what we write. What makes ChatGPT different from other tools is that we can interact with it through conversational prompts. We don't need to follow a fixed structure. We just ask and it gives us a response, sometimes very detailed or creative sometimes. In translation and terminology, this can be really useful. For example, ChatGPT can help with terminology extraction, identifying key terms in a text, with terminology management, organizing terms in glossaries. I will show you something about that later in a slide, and term disambiguation, choosing the right meaning in context. Also, it can help with consistency checking, making sure terms are used the same way across a text. And also it can help with neologisms, those new words that appears in technology, social media, or science that maybe you don't know, and you can ask ChatGPT to give you an equivalent or a definition, things like that. Of course, as we said before, it's not perfect, but if we know how to use it well, it can support our work and save time. Here we have something very important to say here. I think there is a real paradigm shift here. We are moving from using traditional apps and tools where everything followed a fixed structure to a new model based on conversation. This is a big change, I think. Before, we had that we call static tools. These are the typical software program with menus, buttons, and fixed workflows. You had to adapt to how the tool worked. Now, with AI tools like ChatGPT, we interact through conversation. We just write a prompt and the tool responds in real time. This means more flexibility and more possibilities. But this also means that the role of the translator is changing. We are no longer just operators who follow steps. We are becoming critical thinkers. We analyze, we decide, and we correct what AI gives us. Remember that. This is called post-editing, and it's a key part of the job today. Also working with AI requires a new combination of skills. We need to be good with digital tools, but also keep our strong linguistic knowledge. I highlight that. Keep our strong linguistic knowledge. This is quite important. This is what we call human in the loop. The human must always be present in the process, making decisions, checking the quality, and ensuring that the final result makes sense. So this shift is not just about technology, it's about how we work, how we think, and how we train the next generation of translators. Let's now talk about some of the benefits of AI for translators. First of all, productivity. AI can help us save time by taking care of repetitive tasks, things like formatting, tagging, or first draft translation. That gives us more time to focus on what really needs human attention, the creative or specialized part of the job. Second, quality assurance. Many AI tools can detect inconsistencies, missing terms, or awkward style. These tools are getting better at spotting issues that might slip through when we are tired or when we are in a rush. And finally, access to information. AI can process and summarize large amounts of content very quickly. That means we can make better informed choices when translating complex texts, especially in technical or legal fields where accuracy is key. So overall, AI isn't replacing translators, it's becoming a helpful assistant in our workflow, I think. Now let's look briefly at the limitation and challenges of using AI in translation. First, we have context comprehension. While AI can process huge amounts of text, it still struggles with nuance, things like tone, irony, or cultural references. And as translators, we know these are often essential for getting the meaning right. Second, there is the issue of algorithmic bias. AI systems learn from the data they are trained on, and if that data contains bias, social, gender, or cultural, it can show up in the translations. Then there is technological dependence. If we rely too much on AI, we risk letting our core translation and linguistic skills fade. These are still essential for professional quality judgment. And finally, a big concern is data security. Many translation projects involve sensitive legal, medical, business content. Using an AI without proper safeguards can pose privacy risks. So while AI offers great tools, these challenges remind us why human expertise is still essential. Let's take a quick look at how AI is already helping translators. First, we have machine translation, probably the most familiar for you. Tools like DeepL or Google Translator use neural networks which learn patterns from millions of texts. They don't follow grammar rules. They learn from examples. That's why their the translations can sound natural, but they always need human revision. Second, AI supports terminology work. It helps extract terms, suggest translation, and maintain consistency, especially useful in big projects or team settings. Then we have AI-powered quality assurance. These tools are built into CAT tools like Trados or MemoQ. They go beyond spell check. They detect style problems or inconsistent use of terms, for example. And because they are trained on real translations, they can understand context better and give smarter suggestions. Finally, AI is used in speech recognition, as you know. It can turn spoken words into text in real time, which is useful in, for example, in interpreting. So AI is no longer a single tool. is becoming part of the full translation workflow, as you can see here in the slide, from the very beginning, from draft to final delivery of the translation. So AI is transforming the translation process. It's no longer just a small support. It can now generate entire drafts, but that doesn't replace the translator. The process now works in 3 steps. First, AI generates the first draft. You can generate the first draft with it. It's great for predictable content, but it struggles with creativity, cultural nuance, sometimes with terminology, so you need to review that. Then comes human post-editing. We refine the draft. We need to refine the draft. We need to read everything, to be critical when reading, adding clarity sometimes, tone, and natural language. And finally, we deliver the translation, combining AI speed with human quality. Again, human quality. Okay, this is the difference. So AI isn't replacing us, it's reshaping how we work, our workflow. And that means translators need new skills to guide and improve the AI output. So now let's look at how AI enhances corpus-based translation training. I'm going to talk about corpus right now. A corpus gives us real-world examples of language use. When we combine that with AI, we unlock even more possibilities. For instance, AI can align parallel text, helping us study how meaning shifts between languages. It can also extract terminology based on content, showing how terms are used in legal, medical, or everyday text. And some models even adapt to the translator's preferences over time, becoming more accurate. But there are a few important things to remember. That data quality matters. If the corpus is biased or messy, AI will give poor results. AI helps us achieve terminological precision by analyzing how terms are actually used across hundreds of real documents. Tools like Sketch Engine use NL, natural language processing tools, and machine learning to detect patterns and collocations. And there is growing interest in combining them with LLMs like ChatGPT. So AI isn't replacing corpus work, is making it more powerful, more precise, and more useful for both students and professional translators. Let's talk about practical workflows and terminology management. AI brings to terminology. I would like to talk about what AI brings to terminology work, both the good and the risky, right? Here is what you can see in the slide. On the opportunity side, AI is a huge time saver. It can quickly extract hundreds of terms from technical text. You will see that in a slide I will show you in a few slides when we go ahead, which is great. This is great for fields like medicine or law, for domains, specialized domains. When you are working with specialized text, or you want to translate a text, coming from these kind of domains, difficult domains like medicine or law. It also helps keep terminology consistent, as I told you, across big projects or teams. That means that you use the same terms once and again every time it appears in the text, in the project. And it can even generate glossaries and work with CAT tools. Here you have, for example, an image. I don't know if you can see that on the right-hand side. You have, for example, this plugin I have taken it from RWS Apps Store, and you work with this plugin within Trados Studio, for example. But there are risks too. AI might suggest terms that aren't fully accurate and don't fit the context. That's why human review is still essential, especially in specialized areas. We are talking all the time about specialized areas because I will say that 90% of demand in translation is about, you know, legal translation or medicine translation, things like that. And if we rely too much on AI when doing this sort of translations, we risk losing critical thinking. So the best approach, use AI for speed and suggestions, but always apply your own expertise to check and improve the results. This is quite important. I'm going to say this once and again throughout the presentation. This is the drilling method. Say once and again the same thing, okay? Now let's talk about the risk of using AI for terminology. First, there's ambiguity. AI doesn't truly understand language, remember that. It just predicts patterns. So with words that have multiple meanings, like bank, okay, it can easily choose the wrong one. Second, inconsistencies. In technical fields, for example, in areas like law or medicine, terms are very specific and can change quickly. AI often struggles to keep up. Third, bias in training data. If the text used to train the model have cultural or gender bias, the AI can repeat those biases, even when they are not appropriate. So here's the key. AI doesn't understand terminology, it just guesses. That's why we still need human expertise to verify terms. Use trusted sources like IATE or Termion and ensure quality. AI helps, but it doesn't replace us. At this point, the key idea is clear. AI should support us, okay? Is another tool for us, but it's not replacing us, especially in terminology work. We can use AIs to handle the heavy lifting, like extracting terms, spotting patterns, organize data. But when it comes to interpreting and validating those terms, human expertise is still essential. Also, combining AI with corpus analysis is a great strategy. AI finds the patterns, but we are the ones who understand the context and make informed decisions. And in technical fields, we need custom trained models that really understand the terminology, not just general purpose AI. So the takeaway is use AI as a powerful assistant, but keep the human in charge. Let's now look back at corpus linguistics. Corpus linguistics is a key tool in translation training, especially in specialized fields. So what is a corpus? It's a structured collection of real text, newspapers, academic papers, legal documents, contracts that we can analyze using specific software. This matters because it lets translators work with authentic language. You see how words and phrases, you can see with corpus, you can see how words and phrases are actually used in context, which leads to more accurate and natural translation. Corpora also help maintaining terminological consistency, especially in large technical projects, and they improve precision by giving real examples from professional domains. The key insights here, Corpora bridge the gap between theory and real-world practice. They help us move from intuition to data-driven choices. And when we combine, when we combine these with this Corpora with artificial intelligence, they make training faster, more focused, and more effective. I mean, you can charge, you can upload, you can do a model, you know, with ChatGPT, a language model, and then load the corpus, and then this model will learn or will use this corpus in your interaction with it. Let's talk briefly about the different types of corpora we use in translation training. I don't know if you are familiar with this. These corpora may serve different purposes, right? I think you may be aware of parallel corpora. I will show you some slides with that. These show the source and target text side by side, helping us study translation strategies, for example. Next are comparable corpora, similar text in different languages, like medical articles in French and English. These help us understand how different cultures express the same ideas or the same concepts, etc. Then we have terminological corpora, specialized collection used to build glossaries in fields like, engineering, for example, biomedicine. And here I want to tell you a couple of important points. Corpus tools like Opus, I will show you this later, and Sketch Engine help improve bilingual data quality through alignment and analysis functions. And technical translators rely or can rely on corpora for precision, for language, to see patterns, to see how the experts express things, express the concepts, right? So authentic language. Now let's look at an example of a parallel corpus here. This is taken from a Sketch Engine, and the corpus shown here is an aligned EU legislative text, from DGT, Dirección General de Traducción, General Direction of Translation. We search for the word asset here, and as you can see, we get a parallel concordance. This is called concordance. That means the English sentence is shown alongside its official translation, in this case into Spanish. This is really useful to see how specific terms, especially in legal or institutional language, are translated in real context. Here we see assets and then activos, right? We can see a segment in English and then its translation, and you have highlighted the term in Spanish. For example, activos is in yellow and assets is the keyword in red. Here you also have a parallel, another example of parallel corpus, this time using the Opus platform. If you Google Opus corpus, then you will get to this platform. The corpus here is EMEA, which includes text from the European Medicine Agency. So you can select several corpora here, which is ready for you to consult, to see, to read. So it's perfect for this corpus, for example, is perfect for biomedical translation. We search for the word pill in English, and we can see how it aligns with its Spanish equivalent in official translation. You can choose Spanish or Danish or German or Portuguese. You select the alignment in which language you want the alignment, right? This helps us study how medical terms are translated in real documents, which is especially useful for training in specialized fields like, in this case, pharmacy or public health. And finally, here we have an example from a tool many of you probably know, Lingui. Lingui is not a corpus in the academic sense, but it works in a similar way. It shows parallel sentences taken from translated websites and documents. Here we search for a word and it displays the source sentence and its translation side by side. We were intangible assets. Here, this makes it very easy to see the term in context and to compare how it's used across different texts. So your selection again is informed in real sentences, in real language, right? So I think we are using this a lot, this Lingui, because you can see the translation and you can see a word functioning in a context. After these last slides on corpus, let's take a moment to highlight an important idea I want to transfer here. Terminology is not just about words, it's a gateway to digital literacy. Terminology work cultivates crucial competencies for today's digital landscape, and I'm going to show you why. This slide shows how terminology training builds key digital skills for today's translators. First, it develops data analysis. Students learn to structure information and spot patterns through concept mapping and term relationships. Second, it supports AI integration. Learners use tools that extract and classify terms, helping them engage with AI from a linguistics perspective. Third, it introduced knowledge engineering by building glossaries and concept structures. Students gain a foundation in ontologies and semantic technologies. And finally, terminology projects promote collaborative work, often done on cloud platform using version control and structured workflows. So terminology is much more than vocabulary. It's a smart way to build digital fluency for the AI-powered translation world. Here you see, for example, once a student understands how terminology work supports key digital skills, the next step is learning how to apply those skills, starting with prompt creation for AI-driven translation tasks. In this slide, we see a practical example on how to craft a well-structured prompt for a translation-related activity using AI. The task here is to extract medical terms from an English text. The prompt instructs the ChatGPT in this case to identify, first, number one, identify all relevant technical terms, acronyms, and medical jargon, exclude common or generic words, translate each term into, or provide, in this case, provide an equivalent into standard medical Spanish based on commonly accepted usage in professional medical context, seen in terminology databases such as this one. So you are forcing here the ChatGPT not to invent terms, but to rely not in external, sources, but he will look in, in its model for these sources, right? If they have it. And then we are asking to classify the term by type, term, acronym, jargon, etc. Include the original context or sentence in which each term appears, and present the result in a clear table using the following format. So we are telling the ChatGPT the final format, right? We want an Excel, right? Not an Excel, but a table here, right? And the table is with 4 columns here: term in English, Spanish translation, term type, original context. So we are saying be precise, professional, and medically accurate. And we are, do not invent terms. If a term is ambiguous, provide the most common option and include a short clarification in parentheses. Then we give the text to analyze. We paste here the medical text in English, right? So in this case, it's important to learn to write effective prompts, because this is quite important because it's a core skill for future translators. So because we are linguists and we know how to write, we are in fact we are writers. We know how to give instructions to the machine. Just look at that. And this is what we get, what I get, right? We see the results of the previous prompt, a well-organized table with 4 columns: the English term, the Spanish equivalent, the type of term, all of them in here in this snapshot is all word terms, right? and also the original context here, right? So what's really interesting is that ChatGPT doesn't stop here. It goes a step further and suggests continuing the task. For example, it asks whether I like to export the table as an Excel file, right? XLS. Or if I want to make the classification more precise, adding categories like pathology, symptom, anatomy, or process and the term type, right? Look at the suggestion. And this shows us something important, that prompt-based interaction can be iterative. We can refine our outputs and complexity or shift focus depending on our translation or terminology goals. In other words, AI becomes a collaborative partner in our research and learning process. And you will see that in the next slide too. For example, let's look at a more advanced application, visual mapping of terminology. This is a structure suggested by ChatGPT after generating a bilingual term list. It proposed organizing the terminology into a visual map to better understand how terms relate semantically and conceptually. This was a suggestion, right? When I finished the instruction, I get this suggestion, and then I got this result. These maps help us navigate complex terminology in a more intuitive way. They don't just group words, they reveal relationships, such as which terms belong to anatomy, which refer to symptoms and things like that. So you learn in the process, right? I think this is especially helpful for translators working, in domains, by seeing how terms connect within a broader knowledge system. We can make more accurate and context-aware translation decisions at the end. So that means that you can learn more and more if you interact with ChatGPT, because it is suggesting other advanced tasks while you are working in terminology, with terminology. Okay, sorry for that. I don't know why this is showing this. Okay, I'm going to tell you what's here. In this slide, I wanted to present a real world scenario here. We were going to extract from this glossary here. You have a table. This is extracted from a PDF. I Google looking for a financial glossary, and then I got this PDF. So because it was a very large table inside this PDF, ChatGPT can't process it all at once, not in a single prompt, right? That's a key limitation when working with AI tools. But the good news is there are strategies to handle this efficiently. And in the next slide, I'll walk you through how we can manage and optimize these kind of tasks using AI-assisted workflows. Okay, again, sorry for that. I don't know what's happening, because in my computer I could see that properly, but this is a prompt. Okay, I'm going to show you the prompt here. You can read the instruction. Remember that what we want is to extract the terminology from this table. Imagine that the client sends you a PDF, for example, and inside there is a table with bilingual terms. In this case, remember that this was very long. So you are working with a PDF document that contains a bilingual table of English and Spanish terminology. Okay, so the instructions for ChatGPT is extract bilingual terms, starting from the word a, from the table in the PDF uploaded, write the terms in lowercase, okay? In key source, write Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection, right? This is our client, for example. So this is new information that should be written in the outputs, right? In the key source, and provide the list in Excel format with the following keys, right? English, Spanish, and source. Then we get this output, this bilingual term. And here you can see what we get. When I open the Excel, then I have English, Spanish, and source, right? In this case, only the terms starting by A. So let's talk now about ethic and human oversight. Now let's take, I think this is important too. AI brings useful tools to translation, but it also raises ethical concerns. That's why we need to talk about that a little bit. First, there is algorithmic bias. AI can reflect the stereotypes, like assuming doctors are male and nurses female. Second, there is a lack of transparency. Many systems don't explain how they make decisions, which is risky in sensitive fields. And third, there are privacy concerns. Some tools process data externally, which can compromise confidentiality. The solution: human oversight. We must check for bias, verify terminology, and protect sensitive data. AI is powerful, but it's not neutral. Using it responsibly is part of our job as translators. Now let's focus on the role of human oversight. AI is fast and efficient, that's true. There is no doubt about that. But when it comes to accuracy, fairness, and cultural appropriateness, we still need people. One important task is bias mitigation. Translators and terminologists should always check or audit AI suggestion to detect possible stereotypes or biased outputs. We can't just trust the machine blindly. Next, we have post-editing and validation. This is crucial, vital in our workflow. AI can suggest a translation, yes, but that's just the first step. A human expert is needed to make sure it fits the specific field and the cultural context. For example, if the AI gives you a term in a legal document, you must review it carefully. It might sound good, but it could be wrong for that system, right? For your translation. There is also an idea that's becoming more important: ethical AI design. Translators should not just use AI, they can also collaborate with developers, make the tools better, more fair, and more inclusive. So to summarize, human oversight is not optional, it's essential. We need translators who understand AI and can guide it. And just two more slides concerning skills for future translators, and also the work training. The translator's role is evolving. I know this is a fact, this is obvious. Today is not just about language skills, it's about mastering also AI tools and managing digital data responsibly. There are three key areas to focus on. Technology proficiency, learn to use CAT tools, AI-assisted translation, and terminology systems. Tools like DeepL and Trados are now standard, you know that. Critical thinking and analytical skills, don't trust AI blindly, as I told you, spot errors, check context, and watch for AI hallucinations, invented or misleading content. And domain-specific expertise, specialize in fields like, medical, legal, or technical translation. AI can assist, but human expertise is still essential. The takeaway: AI doesn't replace us, it transforms our workflow. Staying relevant means combining linguistic skills, again, linguistic skills, translation skills with AI literacy and lifelong learning. We need to be updating, in our translation technology, in corpus analysis, in prompting, engineering, etc. In today's translation industry, tech skills are no longer optional; they are essential, and they are, teaching in universities. Translators now work with tools like Trados, MemoQ, DeepL, focusing on post-editing AA drafts to boost the speed and quality. Okay. Concerning corpus and terminology tools, resources like Sketch Engine and Conc and Opus support precise terminology work and data-driven decisions. But you see that you can use also prompting engineering with AI to work, to do some translation activities oriented to or concern to terminology. Then optional programming skills, why not? Basic Python can help automate tasks and manage complex language data, a valuable skill for tech-minded translators. I say basic because you can you can learn Python working also with ChatGPT. And again, when working with terminology, I realized that it is suggesting all the time more advanced activities, So if you know a little bit about, this basic Python, maybe for you will be easier to understand the suggestions that ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini is giving you, right? The takeaway here, translation now blends human expertise, AI assistance, and data analysis. AI literacy is as important as language proficiency, and staying in control of the tools is of course is key, nowadays. Now we move beyond technical skills, because being a translator today is about more than just knowing tools or languages. Future translators need to be adaptable, creative, and ethically aware. Let's break this down. Adaptability and continuous learning. AI and natural language processing tools are evolving really fast, so we have to keep learning. For example, by exploring prompt engineering to get better results from AI systems. Intercultural communication and sensitivity. AI can truly understand cannot truly understand cultural nuances. This is where we, as humans, play a key role, bridging cultural gaps and ensuring messages are appropriate and respectful. And ethical decision making, we need to be able to spot bias in AI translations. For instance, gender biases in legal tests. Ethical awareness helps us decide when AI output is acceptable and when it's not. So what's the takeaway here? Future translators are becoming more like language technologists. Ethic and soft skills are just as essential as tech knowledge. And the best practice is to never stop learning through MOOCs, workshops, conferences, whatever helps us grow. This is how we build a sustainable, human-centered career in AI-powered translation. And this is the last one. Training future translators in the AI era. The challenge here is translation today goes far beyond bilingual skills. Training must now include AI tools, corpus literacy, data ethics, and digital workflows. Here you have, for example, what you can work on. For example, AI plus corpus integration, teaching students to use ChatGPT, parallel Corpora, and terminology tools to extract and structure knowledge, for example. Then hands-on skills, terminology project, working with terminology project, glossary extraction from PDF, as we we saw in a previous slide, and prompt engineering build tech to build tech savviness. Also be aware of ethical and necessary, think critically always, to be able to detect bias, and oversight all the output you get with these digital tools, right? And there are also soft skills here: adaptability, intercultural communication, and continuous learning shape resilient language professional. So the message here is translation training in the AI era empowers students not just to translate, but to become language technologists, skilled in tools, ethics, and domain expertise. Thank you very much for your attention. And I don't know if you have any question I can answer. I hope you enjoy the presentation, and I'm here to answer your question or to initiate a discussion about that.
Thank you so much, Chelo. I'm sorry, I have to change that.
I don't know if I was too quick.
No, it was perfect. I'm really sorry. I have to put the mic on of the room, and we have the AC going, so there must be. I mean, I know there is some background noise, but otherwise there is echo. So,
Okay,
yeah,
but I can hear you.
You can hear. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So thank you so much, Chelo. This was very interesting. It was. I really like that. It was very overarching. That you covered like so many topics. And I think it was very informative for students, so I really thank you. And yeah, I actually have a student that has a question. Sarah, do you wanna open your mic or put it in the chat?
Yes, I was actually thinking of like how to word it. First of all, this was an amazing presentation. It definitely gave all of us like a lot to think about, and like how we use technology and like how we translate as well too. So thank you for that so much. My question was, I hope this doesn't come off a little ignorant, but like I only really became aware of ChatGPT in like 2023. And that's like when I really started like hearing more about it, like people were using it more for things. So honestly, I really didn't know it existed till that year. But my question was like for using like AI in the work of like translation, has it been around much longer? Sorry, there's like an event in like another room going on away from me right now. So that's like the music. But my question was like, has it been going on like even before this time? Because I didn't really know like how I feel now AI is definitely very pervasive in our society. Like we have so many search engines at this point that are AI generated. Like I feel a few years ago it wasn't like that. So has AI always been like a very big thing in the field of translation prior to like these last couple of years, or has it really grown more in popularity as of late? And this is like a developing field now because of that.
So I think if I understood you properly, I think that translation is changing, translation workflows, as I told you in the slides. So everything, our workflows are reshaping nowadays. So it is quite new, all this about interacting with a chatbot like ChatGPT, etc. But we are incorporating this into our methods of teaching, learning, and also in our workflow. So yes, AI will reshape the profession, not replace it, but as I told you, it lacks cultural sensitivity, contextual judgment, ethical reasoning, and human translators are the one that can provide all this, at least nowadays. I don't know in the future, okay? Because it will, I don't know if they will become better and better, and then we will see in the future, right?
That makes sense. Thank you so much for your reply. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else here also in the class has any question or any comment or online? I have a comment. Okay, I have one student right here.
Yeah, I think mine is more of a comment. I wanted to ask you actually at the beginning of the presentation, like, how would you deal with like organizations or institutions that are open to now like translators of like applying their knowledge, applying their skills, but at the same time, since it's like a new position that they open, sometimes they can be a little bit like close to the fact that translators need time to actually do the task. So I think the question that I initially had was like, what would you say if like we come up with in a situation where an organization is like, okay, yeah, I need this done in like a day or I don't know, maybe 5 hours, which totally sometimes it doesn't work like that. But I guess what you mentioned throughout the presentation of like how translators are that bridge between like cultural references, the things that AI is accurate, but sometimes it has like, for example, these gender biases that clearly in many translations that we have to do nowadays are can be an issue for later on. So I guess at the end, I kind of like you kind of answered my question of like how we can address that situation when it's like presented. So I really like that there's things that we can say based on like artificial intelligence that it is okay and it is good and a good resource for us to use, but it's not going to give them a good outcome if they rely only on AI instead of like having an option as a translator to kind of provide that bridge between like different languages. I don't know if that made sense, but I mean my comment that I appreciated that you were able to like explain like how we can actually address a situation like that. If someone comes up and says, oh well, we can use AI instead of a translator. All the things that you presented was like very
okay. Yeah, this is going to happen, I'm afraid, because some agencies, not translation agencies, but some possible clients may think that they put the text into, you know, DeepL or Google Translator or ChatGPT, and they are getting text that sounds okay for them in another language, and they are saving money, right? But at the end, I think we will find that these translations, sometimes these translations are not going to work, especially when we are translating a specific documents, you know, with sensitive content. So that's why we need to sell ourselves to give importance to our profession and to know a lot of, you know, cultural things, languages, be very competent in translating, in technology. So we are saving time with that. Maybe for some situations, people are not going to, you know, if you want to know, imagine you go to a web page and it's in Russian and you don't know anything about Russian, but you want to have a clear idea, you know, an idea what it is about. Then you use this DeepL or whatever to get this idea. So machine translation is there and it has its uses, you know. So it's quick, you get an idea, but for professional translations, it doesn't work like that. So we need to explain our job to our clients and everything and show the differences, you know. And that's why in Academy, for example, we show the differences between human translation. You know, we write articles about that, about human translation and the mistakes in human translation, because we make mistakes too. But the quality, you know, of trained translators versus automatic translation or AI translation. You know what I mean? I don't know if it adds something to your comment.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's like we have arguments not to like put out there if an organization is like, well, we can only rely on artificial intelligence, and it's well, I mean, you will have an outcome. I don't know if it's gonna be the most accurate, but I mean, there are things now that we can kind of say to like these companies, institutions, or wherever we're applying our translation skills if this situation is presented. Like, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, sometimes I think that I wonder if we are in danger because of that. What do you think about that? Are we going to disappear?
No way.
Our profession?
What do you think, guys?
No.
A little bit.
A little bit. So what is Juliana says a little bit.
A little bit. I think it will. I mean, it's gonna get to a point where like AI could probably translate something to like the point of like an okay translator. And I think for like a lot of people, I mean, if people are using Google Translate now to save money, like imagine when it gets to a point where like a mediocre enough translation is like more than enough to get the point across at least. So like, not to be like a doomer, sorry, but I think it's just like something like you have to like take into account. Like same thing with like, I mean, you can see it with like how it's affecting things with like photography or art.
Yeah.
You have like art right now is being like genuine art is being like belittled because now it's like you can't tell. And that's like a genuine fear and like something that like that niche and world is gonna have to like try to not necessarily combat, but like have to like learn to like I guess coexist with one another.
Yeah.
And I think it'll definitely be like something that like translation will have to like come into. But I think at the end of the day, like I was thinking to myself, I was like, would translation have to become like something much more strictly like bureaucratic or like much more, I guess, like high level? Because like I said, you could translate a menu and then like that'll be fine. But like if you're translating like official documents, like treaties, like negotiations like that, would like maybe translation will survive in a much more like elite tier or like scale like that. But I think like in general, the AI is definitely gonna have a massive role, or it's gonna be getting a lot, like it's getting its claws in.
Yeah, I agree with you. There are some documents that need professional translators, like, you know, legal documents, for example, contracts, these sort of things.
Yeah.
So specialized translation, that's why I was talking all the time about specialized translation and domains, because here I think we have the rule still, right? So we are not going to be replaced in these domains, but our workflow is going to be reshaped. We are changing our, training methods, but also our profession too. What do you think about, I'm going to ask you, what do you think about these professional translators that think that we as teachers, we shouldn't teach this sort of technology like DeepL, Google Translator, or now ChatGPT? What do you think about that? Because there are some, some people, some professionals that think that we should not do that.
Oh, wow, that's a question. Yeah.
I don't think there's anything like inherently wrong with it. I think, like I said, if anything, like I think we're just gonna have to like learn to coexist with it if it continues to become like a much more integral part of our lives. Same way that like social media is like now like we view social media in the same way that we view like the standard news media, which 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it wasn't that case. So I think with AI, it's definitely like continue on the path that we seem to be heading towards. Looks like it's gonna be just like much more involved. So I don't think it's inherently wrong to like teach it, because like you said, like if like the translation world seems to be heading towards this direction, it's better to prepare people now for that, to be able to use those tools to like their ability, to like their best ability. And if it gets even better, then like you could probably like if anything, translation could probably become like, I don't know, it could go a lot of ways, but what's it called? I think it's like, I don't know, like something that came up to me was like, as corny as it is, Uncle Ben's with great power comes great responsibility. I think if you know how to use the tools that you have, especially with how like incredible it can be, because like they sell this amazing idea of AI, but like I don't think we're there yet. But I think if anything, like it could help us be much more accurate with one another. And if it goes towards that more like professional setting, if anything, it'll be better to make sure that there's like no inconsistencies. So I think that's where it could go.
Okay. We have Lily. Do you wanna say something?
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess related to the previous point that you guys were just discussing, I kind of feel like, especially like right now where we kind of are in like the golden age of computing and we have computing power growing exponentially, I feel like it's kind of inevitable that all these like powerful systems and computing tools kind of basically become a staple of I don't know, like everyday life, but also like the workplace. So I feel like people, and this doesn't just go for the translation fields, but any like specialized field. So for example, I work in a lab, so like scientists, for example, like those that want to reject the use of machine learning or AI to help augment fields such as research, such as translation, other professional, highly specialized fields. I feel like the people who refuse or discourage the adoption of that whatsoever kind of reminds me of like older people generationally who like refuse to use the internet. I feel like that approach is going to be archaic. And if as a professional, your goal is to truly have like a level, like the maximum level of quality and efficiency possible, then that includes using all the possible tools at your disposal. And I strongly believe that in a case where you have two professionally trained translators, but one who has also trained and honed their craft in conjunction with AI as kind of this augmenting tool, and one who hasn't, then the professional that makes use of all the tools possible, including machine learning, I feel like is inevitably going to be the one that is more sought after, both more sought after in the workforce and more effective in general. I was also, it's funny because when we were talking about like whether, you know, translators will end up becoming more replaceable, and, you know, like the degree to which machine learning or neural networks can reason. So I actually do work right now for an AI company. It's not for translation, but what I basically do and what hundreds of other employees at this company is doing is we are actually we're generating prompts and like reasoning for AI. So it's kind of gotten to the point where instead of throwing data at it, like existing data like on the internet, documents or whatever, people are actually getting hired to provide not just how to explain it, to not only provide examples that will train the language model, but also to include like your reasoning, your logical thought process, and also to reject like errors in reasoning, quote unquote, that the machine makes. So all of that is being reviewed over by like a human, and we are given puzzles that, for example, the machine doesn't know how to solve, and we are being asked to explain it back to the machine on human terms. So that's actually part of something that I do, and it's really interesting to see. It's also kind of scary, because it's like this is kind of the next level, right? So instead of using just existing data to train the machine, we are now basically harnessing human minds and like human reasoning and feeding human generated models directly back into the machine in order to improve it beyond the limits of what it is right now, which is basically if you dump all the documents or all the information on the internet into the model. I guess imagine if you also employed a translator, hired them to look at the machine translation and explain back to the machine why their translation is awkward and explain all the nuances behind that. So that's kind of the next level. And it's definitely a bit scary. So I just wanted to know your thoughts on that, I guess, because I found that pretty interesting.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you. I have some thoughts of that, but Chelo, do you want to answer or?
No, it's very interesting what you are saying. I mean, in the future, we will see how this develops, right? Now, what there is at the back is million of texts of information, right? Again, this information has been created by humans. And again, AI cannot think or reason like we can do that. Okay. So, but maybe in the future will be different because it is, evolving in a very, any computer analyst I know is working on that, is working on artificial intelligence and models. And you can see that every day you have a different app in ChatGPT you can use for example, creating routines for the gym or creating an itinerary to travel. So you have many different things that they are working on. So at the end, I think in the future this will work better than now. Now it works really, really well. For us at least, because you can save time with that in repetitive tasks. For example, the ones I show you in the slides, right? Things that we do when we are preparing text for translation. So we will see in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I just recommended this book that I read on.
Yeah.
It's called The Technology Trap, that I recommend if you're interested in topics about technology and how it impacts society. And it kind of resonated with what Lily was saying. I mean, I think there are two ideas that I wanted to mention, and I haven't forgotten you. There's another question coming, a final one, because it's 12 a.m. in Spain and Professor Vargas has to go to bed.
Oh, wow.
So so one idea is that through history has been demonstrated that the new technologies, they cause havoc at the beginning, but they actually create more employment on the long term because they actually open new possibilities, right? So we were talking, translators become language specialists or language technologists. Yeah. It's a new whole set of skills and that's actually something that I think about, should we still call ourselves, or even the studies that we do, translation studies, or should we evolve and call ourselves something else? So that's one thing. And then the other thing though is that the theory of the book is that it takes a little bit for these technologies to settle down and know exactly the impact. And I think right now we are in this transition phase where we actually don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. Every day is something really new, right? Every day is and we don't really know how, these technologies are going to impact and what jobs are going to stay and what jobs are going to. So on the long term, I think it's going to have a positive impact. We are just living the transition and it's a little bit difficult because, we have to adapt constantly. But I guess in a few years, hopefully you will be retired, Chelo and me. But the new generations, you know, you will then see how this is actually impacting the job market. And final question from Will, and then we have to finish because yeah.
Gracias, profesora Ramírez. Buenas tardes a todas y a todos. Quisiera agradecerle a la profesora Vargas por una ponencia sobresaliente, además de darle las gracias a los contribuyentes por una conversación fascinante. So I'd like to ask a little bit about localization in AI and some of the really fascinating remarks you made in your presentation. Anecdotally, in Windows Copilot and ChatGPT, my queries tend to produce more linguistic translations that seem to focus on equivalence and aren't extremely localized. Even when I try to specify, country, region, or domain. So sometimes I'm surprised, but usually I find that I have to conduct further research about, and source and legal and target texts. So I'm not sure if corpus-based approaches with AI would be a way to address this kind of impasse or problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
So tell me again the question, Ryan.
Of course. So basically, localization in AI, how to deal with, at least when I use Copilot or ChatGPT, the translation, certain queries tend to produce very like equivalence-based translations. Like instead of Department of Labor, they'll just give me Departamento de Trabajo instead of Ministerio de, a more localized translation, perhaps even when I specify the country or the region.
Okay, with these sort of things, with, for example, these ministerial things you are saying, I mean, these proper names, if I understood your question properly, that means that if you work for these sort of organizations, you are not going to use these sort of devices, or this was your question?
Sí que lo que he entendido yo es el problema de la localización, ¿no? Con el uso de estas tecnologías. Si realmente hacer sobre todo con los culturemas o con comunidades, digamos, que realmente las herramientas no hacen una traducción equivalencialista y no hacen una adaptación a la cultura meta, ¿no?
I talked about that, about the problem with cultural references, for example. When you have a cultural reference, like a proper name or things like that, you need to train the model again to give you the proper names, or if these names are, are translated, they have an institutional translation or not. So otherwise, you will get errors or mistakes from this localization. They are using AI for localization because there are also repetitive words, for example, in software or things like that. So they have terminology databases with all these names and terminology, so they can translate that with no problem at all. And then you can, as I told you, you can train the model with these sort of terms. But when there is something cultural, again, you need to review this cultural nuance or this cultural reference by a human being, by a professional translator. Otherwise, there is something new. There is no anything in a lexicon you feed with which you feed the DeepL or whatever, then you are going to get mistakes, of course, especially in this. Right?
Okay. Thank you so much, Chelo. We don't want to take more of your time.
Sometimes I don't listen the properly here. Can
you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now.
Yeah, so just thank you so much. We don't want to take more of your time. We really, really appreciate it. It was really interesting. I think they took away a lot. And yeah, have a great night. Thank you for staying so late with us. And yeah, thank you. And And we'll see each other in Milan.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Chelo. Thank you so
Bye.
much. Thank you. Thank
And
you, everyone.
Thank you.